You people always think expensive clothes make you respectable. Officer Derek Mitchell's voice cuts through the suburban afternoon as he shoves the handcuffed black man forward. Jonathan Hayes stumbles in his $1,000 suit, wrists bleeding from the tight metal cuffs. Derek yanks Jonathan's tie like a leash, parading him past horrified neighbors. Children stare from their bicycles. A woman live streams, her phone shaking. "Look at this wannabe big shot!" Derek kicks Jonathan's scattered legal papers, grinding them under his boot. "Bet you stole that fancy watch, too." He slaps the Rolex on Jonathan's wrist, making it clatter against the handcuffs. The crowd gasps, but Jonathan's calm eyes hold a secret. Through his torn jacket, something metallic glints. A federal badge. 2 hours ago, this man was reviewing civil rights cases in his FBI office. Have you ever seen pure arrogance destroy someone's career in 60 seconds? The morning sun streams through the tall windows of the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago. Special Agent Jonathan Hayes sits at his mahogany desk, surrounded by case files that could change lives forever. His fingers trace over photographs of bruised faces and torn clothing. Each image tells a story of civil rights violations in suburban police departments. The coffee in his FBI mug has gone cold hours ago. "Another pattern emerging in Oak Brook," Jonathan murmurs, highlighting statistics on his computer screen. 23 traffic stops of black drivers in 6 months. 0 citations issued to white drivers in the same period. His phone buzzes. Maya's bright smile fills the screen as she video calls from her high school. "Dad, I finished my college essay about justice. Want to hear it?" Jonathan's stern expression melts into pure fatherly pride. "Always, sweetheart. Read it to me." Maya clears her throat. "My father taught me that dignity isn't something people give you. It's something you carry inside, even when the world tries to strip it away." Jonathan's throat tightens. Those words echo his late brother Marcus, who died in police custody 15 years ago. The case that drove Jonathan to join the FBI's Civil Rights Division. "That's beautiful, Maya. Your grandfather would be proud." After hanging up, Jonathan slides his grandfather's vintage Rolex onto his wrist. The weight of 3 generations settles on his arm. His grandfather bought this watch with his first paycheck as a factory supervisor, back when such opportunities were rare for black men. Jonathan packs his briefcase with federal investigation files. Today's mission: meeting Oak Brook Police Chief Patricia Collins about implementing federal oversight. The department has been under FBI scrutiny for months. His black Mercedes E-Class gleams in the courthouse parking garage, a gift from his father before the cancer took him. "Success isn't about the car you drive, son," his father had said. "It's about the roads you choose to travel." The drive to Oak Brook takes 30 minutes through changing neighborhoods. Downtown Chicago's diverse energy gives way to manicured suburbs where million-dollar homes line tree-shaded streets. Oak Brook represents American prosperity at its finest, or most exclusive, depending on your perspective. The median household income hovers around $127,000. The population statistics tell their own story: 89% white, 8% Asian, 2% black, 1% Hispanic. Children's bicycles dot perfect driveways. American flags flutter from colonial-style porches. Shopping centers gleam with luxury brands and organic markets. This is where successful families build their dreams. It's also where Jonathan's investigation has uncovered a disturbing pattern. His dashboard GPS announces the turn onto Maple Street. Jonathan reduces his speed to 28 miles per hour in the 30-mile zone. His turn signals click precisely. Every traffic law was followed to perfection. He's learned to be careful in neighborhoods like this. 3 black families have moved to Oak Brook in the past year, drawn by excellent schools and low crime rates. But the local Facebook groups tell a different story. Coded language about maintaining property values and preserving neighborhood character fills the comment sections. Jonathan's investigation files contain screenshots of these posts, evidence for the federal case he's building. Police patrol cars circle these streets more frequently now. Traffic stops have increased 40% since those families arrived. The pattern is unmistakable to trained federal eyes. His Mercedes purrs past $200,000 homes with security systems and perfectly trimmed hedges. Neighbors wave politely from their garden work, the kind of surface friendliness that keeps communities peaceful. Jonathan checks his watch. The meeting with Chief Collins starts in 20 minutes. His briefcase contains federal mandates that could transform how Oak Brook police interact with residents. Constitutional policing training, bias recognition workshops, community oversight boards. Change never comes easy, especially to places that believe they don't need it. A jogger with expensive headphones nods as she passes. Two mothers push strollers, discussing soccer practice schedules. Normal suburban life continues around him, unaware that federal justice moves through their streets. Jonathan's phone displays a text from his FBI supervisor. "Remember, we need clean evidence for this case. Document everything." The irony isn't lost on him. As a federal agent investigating civil rights violations, Jonathan must be beyond reproach. One mistake, one moment of anything less than perfection, and defense attorneys will shred his credibility in court. He signals right onto Oak Avenue, maintaining exactly the speed limit. His father's voice echoes, "In this world, son, we have to be twice as good to get half as much." Today, Jonathan carries the hopes of every family his investigation will protect. The weight of federal authority rests on his shoulders, hidden beneath his perfectly pressed suit. The GPS announces his destination ahead. Time to make history. Officer Derek Mitchell adjusts his rearview mirror and spots the black Mercedes 3 blocks away. His jaw tightens as he watches the expensive sedan navigate the tree-lined streets with careful precision. "Look at this guy, Bradley," Derek mutters to his partner. "Probably casing houses for his next break-in." Officer Bradley Knox shifts in the passenger seat, eager to please his senior partner. "Should we check him out?" Derek's radio crackles with routine chatter, but his eyes stay locked on the Mercedes. In his 8 years patrolling Oak Brook, he's developed what he calls instincts about people who don't belong. "Black guy in a car worth more than my annual salary? In this neighborhood?" Derek starts the patrol car engine. Something's not right. Jonathan maintains exactly 28 miles per hour, his hands positioned at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Every turn signal clicks precisely 3 times. His grandfather's Rolex catches the afternoon sunlight as he checks the time. The police cruiser appears in his rearview mirror, maintaining distance but clearly following. Jonathan's trained eyes recognize the pattern. He's seen it countless times in his federal investigations. "Here we go," he whispers, reaching for his phone to text his supervisor. But Derek's lights explode into action before Jonathan can type a single word. The siren's sharp blast cuts through the peaceful neighborhood like a blade. Jonathan's stomach drops, but his FBI training kicks in immediately. He signals right, pulls to the curb, and places both hands visibly on the steering wheel. Derek approaches with his hand resting on his weapon holster. His swagger screams authority, the kind that comes from years of unchallenged power in suburban streets. "License and registration," Derek barks through the partially lowered window. "And keep your hands where I can see them, boy." The word "boy" hangs in the air like a slap. Jonathan's jaw tightens, but his voice remains steady. "Officer, may I ask the reason for this stop?" Derek's face twists with irritation. "I'll ask the questions here. You just answer them." Bradley takes position on the passenger side, hand hovering near his radio. His body language mirrors his partner's aggressive stance. "Step out of the vehicle," Derek orders. "Now." Jonathan complies slowly, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. "Officer, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." "I haven't violated any traffic laws." "That's what they all say," Derek sneers, forcing Jonathan against the car's warm hood. The metal burns through his expensive suit jacket. Mrs. Jennifer Martinez jogs past, her morning run interrupted by the commotion. She slows, then stops completely as Derek begins an aggressive pat-down of the well-dressed man. "Hands behind your head. Spread your legs wider," Derek commands, his voice carrying across the quiet street. Jonathan positions himself as ordered, maintaining his dignity despite the public humiliation. His grandfather's Rolex glints as he raises his arms. "Look at this fancy watch," Derek announces loudly. "Where'd you steal this from?" "It belonged to my grandfather," Jonathan responds calmly. "Sure it did." Derek's laugh carries no humor. "Just like this car belongs to you, right?" More neighbors emerge from their homes. A man walking his golden retriever stops to stare. Two mothers pushing strollers whisper to each other across the street. Bradley calls dispatch on his radio. "We've got a possible theft suspect on Oak Avenue, requesting backup for additional units." The words "theft suspect" echo through the radio static, loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. Jonathan closes his eyes briefly, feeling the familiar burn of injustice in his chest. "Empty your pockets," Derek orders. "Everything on the hood." Jonathan complies, placing his wallet, keys, and phone on the car's surface. Derek rifles through the wallet with exaggerated suspicion. "Jonathan Hayes," Derek reads from the driver's license. "Federal employee, huh? What kind of federal job does someone like you have?" The question drips with disbelief and contempt. Jonathan straightens his shoulders. "I work in law enforcement." Derek's laughter grows louder. "Right. And I'm the President of the United States." Bradley joins in the mockery. Maybe he's a security guard at some government building. A crowd of 15 neighbors now watches from safe distances. Most look uncomfortable, but none intervene. Their silence feels heavier than the afternoon heat. Derek discovers Jonathan's expensive briefcase in the back seat. "What's in here?" "Stolen jewelry? Drugs?" "Legal documents related to my work," Jonathan answers truthfully. "We'll see about that." Derek pops the briefcase locks, sending federal case files scattering across the asphalt. Photographs of police misconduct victims flutter in the breeze. Legal briefs with FBI letterhead mix with personal family photos. Derek kicks at the papers dismissively. "Look at all this fake government stuff," Derek announces to his audience. "These guys will print anything to look important." Jonathan watches his life's work trampled under Derek's boots. Each document represents months of investigation, families seeking justice, communities demanding change. "Officer, those are official federal documents," Jonathan says firmly. "I need to ask you to handle them with care." Derek's face darkens. "You need to ask me? You're not in any position to ask for anything." The crowd grows larger. Teenagers on bicycles join the adults. Someone's phone appears, then another, then several more. The age of social media means every police interaction becomes potential evidence. Mrs. Martinez pulls out her smartphone and begins recording. Her thumb finds the Facebook Live button. "Going live from Oak Avenue," she whispers into her phone. Police stop in progress. Derek notices the cameras but misreads the situation completely. The attention feeds his ego rather than triggering caution. "Everyone can see how we handle troublemakers in this neighborhood," Derek announces proudly. Bradley produces a small plastic baggie from his patrol car. "Found this in the vehicle," he lies smoothly. Derek examines the empty baggie with theatrical concern. "Looks like drug residue to me. We're going to need to run some tests." Jonathan's hands clench into fists behind his head. The planted evidence is textbook police misconduct, exactly what his federal investigations have documented in case after case. "That baggie didn't come from my vehicle," Jonathan states clearly for the recording phones. "That's what they all say," Derek replies. "Bradley, call for a transport unit. We're making an arrest." The words hit the crowd like electricity. Several people gasp audibly. Mrs. Martinez's live stream viewer count climbs past 50 people. Derek produces handcuffs from his belt, the metal gleaming in the sunlight. Jonathan Hayes, you're under arrest for possession of controlled substances and obstruction of justice. I invoke my right to remain silent and request legal counsel, Jonathan responds professionally. Derek roughly pulls Jonathan's arms behind his back. The handcuffs click shut with finality, each sound echoing across the silent street. The crowd watches in stunned disbelief as Derek begins his victory parade, forcing Jonathan to walk slowly past the gathering neighbors. The perp walk serves no legal purpose, only Derek's ego. This is what happens when people think they're above the law, Derek announces to his captive audience. But in his jacket pocket, partially visible through the torn fabric, Jonathan's federal badge catches the light. None of the officers notice the glint of metal that will soon change everything. The arrest is complete, the humiliation total, the injustice is perfect. Derek has no idea he's just handcuffed a senior FBI agent investigating his department for civil rights violations. Derek's radio crackles with backup units responding to his call. 3 more patrol cars arrive within minutes, their flashing lights painting the quiet suburban street in alternating red and blue strobes that reflect off expensive house windows. What do we have here, Mitchell? Sergeant Williams steps out of his cruiser, adjusting his duty belt with practiced authority. His weathered face surveys the scene with the confidence of a 20-year veteran. Caught a theft suspect with stolen property and drug paraphernalia, Derek announces proudly, his chest swelling with self-importance. The vehicle's probably stolen too. Guy was acting real suspicious, driving through the neighborhood like he owned the place. Jonathan remains silent, his hands cuffed tightly behind his back. The metal cuts into his wrists, drawing thin lines of blood that stain his white shirt cuffs. But his face shows no pain. Only quiet determination burns in his eyes. I smell marijuana coming from the vehicle. Derek lies loudly enough for the cameras to capture every word. The strong odor of cannabis. We need to conduct a thorough search under probable cause. Bradley nods eagerly like a puppy seeking approval. Probable cause definitely established, Sergeant. I can smell it, too. The fabricated justification sends murmurs through the growing crowd of 40-plus neighbors. Mrs. Martinez's Facebook Live viewer count has climbed past 200 people, comments flooding the screen faster than she can read them. This is insane, types one viewer. Someone call the mayor. Recording everything, another comment reads. This cop is out of control. Derek forces Jonathan to lean against the patrol car hood, spreading his legs wider with unnecessary aggression. Don't move a muscle while we search your stolen merchandise, boy. The hot metal burns through Jonathan's expensive suit jacket as Derek begins systematically ransacking the Mercedes interior. Leather seats torn open with pocket knives. Glove compartment contents dumped onto the asphalt like garbage. Personal items scattered across the street without regard. Look at this fancy briefcase, Derek calls out to his audience, hoisting Jonathan's federal case files above his head. Probably stolen from some big-shot lawyer's office downtown. He dumps the contents with theatrical flair. Legal briefs flutter in the afternoon breeze like confetti. Photographs of police brutality victims land face up on the concrete, their bruised faces staring at the sky. FBI letterhead documents mix with family pictures of Jonathan's daughter Maya at her high school graduation. Derek deliberately steps on a photo of Jonathan's FBI Academy graduation ceremony. His heavy boot grinds the precious memory into the pavement, leaving dirty footprints across Jonathan's proudest moment. Officer, those are important legal documents, Jonathan says with forced calm. They contain sensitive information that needs proper handling. Derek whips around, his face twisted with pure rage. Spittle flies from his lips as he shouts, "Did I give you permission to speak, boy?" He grabs Jonathan's expensive silk tie, yanking it so hard the fabric tears audibly. In this neighborhood, people like you keep their mouths shut unless spoken to by your betters. The crowd collectively gasps. Several phones capture the moment of pure racist aggression. Mrs. Martinez's live stream comments explode with outrage and disbelief from viewers across Chicago. "Someone needs to stop this," whispers an elderly man walking his golden retriever. But like the others, he doesn't intervene. Fear and social conditioning keep them passive observers. Bradley discovers Jonathan's grandfather's vintage Rolex during the aggressive pat-down. "Check out this watch, Derek. Probably worth more than both our cars combined." Derek examines the timepiece with exaggerated suspicion, holding it up to catch the sunlight. "Where'd you steal this beauty from? Some rich old white man's mansion?" "It belonged to my grandfather," Jonathan repeats, his voice steady despite the mounting humiliation. Each word carries decades of family pride. Derek's harsh laughter carries across the street like breaking glass. "Right. And I suppose he was some big-shot businessman in a three-piece suit?" "He worked in a steel factory for 43 years, Jonathan answers with quiet dignity. "Saved for months to buy that watch with his promotion money." "Factory worker with a Rolex?" Derek shakes his head mockingly, playing to his audience. "You people really think we're that stupid, don't you?" The racist undertone hits the crowd like a physical slap. Several neighbors look away uncomfortably, their guilt written across their faces. But their silence enables the escalating abuse to continue unchallenged. Derek removes the watch from Jonathan's wrist with deliberate roughness, twisting the metal band until it scratches skin. "This is evidence now. We'll make sure it gets returned to its rightful owner." "That watch is with its rightful owner," Jonathan responds with steel in his voice. Derek's face darkens like a thundercloud. "What did I say about keeping your big mouth shut?" He shoves Jonathan harder against the car hood, the handcuffs cutting deeper into already bleeding wrists. Fresh blood stains the expensive suit jacket. Bradley laughs nervously, caught between admiration for his partner's dominance and growing unease about their actions. "Search the trunk thoroughly," Derek orders, his authority absolute. "Guys like this always hide the good stuff in the back compartments." The Mercedes trunk pops open with a soft electronic hum, revealing Jonathan's gym bag, emergency federal credentials kit, and personal belongings. Derek dumps everything onto the street without ceremony, treating each item like contaminated evidence. Athletic clothes mix with legal documents. Jonathan's FBI identification holder lands near a storm drain, so close to discovery yet invisible to Derek's arrogance-blinded eyes. Sergeant Williams examines the scattered contents with growing professional interest. "What's this federal ID case, Mitchell?" Derek grabs the leather credentials holder before Williams can examine it properly. "Probably fake government identification. These con artists love pretending to be federal agents or lawyers." Jonathan's official FBI badge and identification remain hidden inside the case, mere inches from revelation. The irony burns through his chest like acid. "Let's run his plates through the system," Bradley suggests, eager to contribute something useful to the arrest. Derek keys the Mercedes license number into his patrol car computer terminal. The screen displays registration information matching Jonathan's driver's license exactly, down to the middle initial and current address. "Registered to the suspect," Derek announces to the crowd. "But that doesn't mean anything." Could be a long-term theft situation. These guys are getting more sophisticated with their scams. The increasingly desperate justifications reveal Derek's determination to find Jonathan guilty of something, anything, regardless of contradictory evidence. His reputation depends on this arrest being legitimate. Mrs. Martinez's live stream has reached 800 viewers. Comments pour in from across the metropolitan area as the video gets shared and reshared on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram platforms. "This is a civil rights violation," types one legal expert viewer. "Someone needs to call the FBI immediately." Already trending on Twitter, another comment reads, "$sign Oakbrook police abuse is blowing up. If only they knew they were watching an FBI agent being illegally arrested," Mrs. Martinez thinks, continuing to broadcast the escalating confrontation to her growing audience. Derek produces the small plastic baggie Bradley planted during the initial search. Found this suspicious substance under the driver's seat. He lies directly to the cameras. Jonathan's jaw muscles clench visibly. That baggie was never in my vehicle. It's planted evidence. Sure it wasn't, Derek replies with theatrical disbelief. Just like the expensive watch isn't stolen, and the luxury car isn't stolen, right? He holds the empty baggie up to the afternoon light with scientific precision. Looks like cocaine residue to me. We'll need comprehensive lab testing to confirm the exact substance. The planted evidence represents everything Jonathan has investigated in dozens of federal civil rights cases. Corrupt officers manufacturing probable cause to justify illegal arrests of minority citizens. Field test this immediately, Derek orders Bradley, producing a drug testing kit from his patrol car's equipment compartment. Bradley fumbles with the testing materials, his hands shaking slightly. The deception makes him visibly uncomfortable, but opposing Derek's authority seems impossible. Derek, Sergeant Williams interjects quietly, stepping closer. Maybe we should slow down and... I've got this situation completely under control, Derek cuts him off sharply. This is exactly the kind of criminal activity that residents have been calling and complaining about. 4 more neighbors join the growing crowd of spectators. Teenagers with smartphones capture every moment from multiple angles. The incident is being documented more thoroughly than most federal crime scenes. Derek forces Jonathan into a humiliating perp walk toward the transport vehicle. Each step is calculated for maximum public embarrassment and personal degradation. Take a real good look, everyone, Derek announces to his captive audience with obvious satisfaction. This is what happens when criminals think expensive clothes and fancy cars make them respectable citizens. Jonathan walks with his head held high despite the handcuffs, torn clothing, and bleeding wrists. His innate dignity remains intact even as Derek systematically destroys his public reputation. You people always think you're so much better than the rest of us hard-working Americans, Derek continues his racist commentary for the cameras. But you all end up in handcuffs just like any other common street criminal. The crowd watches in stunned, uncomfortable silence as Derek loads Jonathan into the patrol car like a hunting trophy. Triumph and vindication radiate from every gesture and facial expression. Derek's moment of ultimate victory is about to become his career's final devastating act. Derek slams the patrol car door with satisfied finality, sealing Jonathan inside the cage-like rear compartment. Through the reinforced window, Jonathan's calm eyes meet Derek's triumphant gaze with unsettling composure. Processing time, Derek announces to Bradley, pulling out his arrest paperwork. Grand theft auto, possession of controlled substances, obstruction of justice. This guy's looking at serious prison time. Jonathan shifts forward in the cramped back seat, his voice cutting through the metal barrier with quiet authority. Officer Mitchell, I need to inform you of something legally required. Derek doesn't look up from his paperwork, pen scratching across official forms. Save your sob story for the judge, criminal. Maybe he'll take pity on you. This is not a request, Jonathan continues, his tone shifting subtly. Federal law requires me to identify myself to local law enforcement. Bradley glances nervously between his partner and the prisoner. Something in Jonathan's voice has changed. Less victim, more authority figure. I am Special Agent Jonathan Hayes, Federal Bureau of Investigation Civil Rights Division, Jonathan states clearly for every phone camera still recording. Derek's pen stops moving. His laugh starts confident but wavers slightly. Right, and I'm the Director of Homeland Security. You people will say anything to avoid consequences. Jonathan reaches slowly toward his torn jacket pocket, his movements deliberate and professional. I'm going to show you my federal credentials now. Keep your hands where I can see them, Derek barks, but uncertainty creeps into his voice. Jonathan produces his official FBI badge and identification wallet, holding them against the window where Derek can see clearly. The gold shield catches sunlight, its eagle emblem gleaming with undeniable authenticity. Derek's face transforms from smug confidence to confused panic in real time. Color drains from his cheeks as he stares at the federal credentials. That's gotta be fake, Derek stammers, but his voice lacks conviction. Bradley examines the badge through the window, his eyes widening with recognition. Derek, this looks completely real. The holographic security features, the serial numbers. Mrs. Martinez's live stream explodes with viewer comments as the truth spreads across social media platforms in real time. Holy shit, he's actually FBI! This cop just arrested a federal agent. Derek is so screwed. Sergeant Williams approaches the patrol car, drawn by the commotion. He takes one look at Jonathan's credentials and immediately grabs his radio. Dispatch, I need immediate verification of FBI Special Agent Jonathan Hayes, badge number 2847, priority request. The radio crackles with static before dispatch responds. Confirmed. Special Agent Jonathan Hayes, 18-year veteran, currently assigned to the Civil Rights Division. Is there a problem, Sergeant? The words hit Derek like physical blows. His hand trembles as he unlocks the patrol car door, reality crashing down around his carefully constructed arrest. Jonathan steps out of the vehicle with renewed dignity, straightening his torn jacket. The handcuffs remain, but his entire demeanor has shifted from victim to federal law enforcement professional. Officers, Jonathan says calmly, pulling out his smartphone. You have just committed multiple federal civil rights violations under color of law. This incident is now under federal investigation. Derek's mouth opens and closes wordlessly, like a fish gasping for air. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the cool afternoon temperature. Agent Hayes, Derek finally manages, his voice cracking. This was just a terrible misunderstanding. We were following standard procedure for suspicious illegal search without probable cause, Jonathan interrupts, his FBI training taking over. Planted evidence, false arrest, excessive force, racial profiling. Each carries federal felony charges. The crowd's energy completely transforms. What began as uncomfortable witnessing of injustice became a celebration of poetic justice. Applause breaks out among the neighbors. Get those handcuffs off him right now, shouts an elderly woman who had remained silent throughout the abuse. Derek fumbles with his keys, hands shaking so violently he drops them twice. Bradley steps forward to help, equally panicked about their situation. Please don't file federal charges, Derek begs as he removes the handcuffs. I have a family, a mortgage. This job is all I know. Jonathan rubs his bleeding wrists, examining the cuts caused by the overly tight restraints. You should have considered those consequences before violating the constitutional rights of citizens. He speed dials his FBI supervisor while collecting his scattered belongings. Supervisor Carter, this is Agent Hayes. I need the evidence response team at Oak Avenue in Oak Brook immediately. Multiple federal civil rights violations committed against me during my investigation. Sergeant Williams immediately suspends both officers pending federal investigation. Their badges and weapons are secured as potential evidence in federal crimes. The neighborhood transforms into a crime scene as Jonathan takes control. Yellow tape appears. FBI vehicles arrive within minutes, sirens wailing across the suburban landscape. Mrs. Martinez's live stream reaches 10,000 viewers as news stations pick up the story. Number sign Federal Badge Justice begins trending nationally within the hour. Derek pleads desperately with Jonathan, tears streaming down his face. Please, Agent Hayes. I didn't know who you were. This was all just a big mistake. Jonathan's response carries the weight of federal authority and decades of investigating similar cases. The mistake was thinking your badge gave you the right to abuse citizens based on their race. Local news vans arrive as Derek and Bradley are escorted from the scene, their law enforcement careers effectively over. The racist officer who thought he was arresting a car thief has just destroyed his entire life. Jonathan calls his daughter Maya to explain why she'll see her father on the evening news. Then he returns to the scattered federal case files, now evidence in his own civil rights violation. The hunter has become the hunted. The oppressor now faces federal prosecution. Justice has arrived wearing an FBI badge that Derek was too arrogant to discover. Power has shifted completely, and there's no going back. Derek's hands shake uncontrollably as he removes the handcuffs from Jonathan's bleeding wrists. The metal clicks open with a sound that echoes like thunder across the silent street. "Agent Hayes, please!" Derek's voice cracks with desperation. "This was all just a terrible misunderstanding. I was following department protocol for suspicious vehicles." Jonathan examines his torn suit jacket and bloodied wrists with clinical detachment. "Officer Mitchell, illegal search and planted evidence are not department protocol anywhere in the United States." The crowd of neighbors watches in stunned silence as the power dynamic completely reverses. Children who had been frightened now point excitedly at the real police cars arriving with FBI agents inside. Sergeant Williams immediately steps forward, his face grave with the realization of what his officers have done. "Agent Hayes, I'm placing both officers on immediate suspension pending federal investigation." "No, Sergeant, please," Bradley pleads, his career flashing before his eyes. "Derek made all the decisions. I was just following his lead." Derek whips around to face his partner with pure betrayal burning in his eyes. "You participated willingly, Bradley. Don't try to throw me under the bus now." Jonathan pulls out his smartphone and speed dials his FBI supervisor. "Supervisor Carter, this is Special Agent Hayes. I need the evidence response team at my location immediately for multiple federal civil rights violations." "Are you injured, Jonathan?" comes the concerned voice through the speaker. "Minor injuries. The important thing is we now have documented evidence of the pattern we've been investigating." Mrs. Martinez continues live streaming, her viewer count exploding past 5,000 people. Comments flood her screen faster than her phone can display them. "This is the best plot twist ever. That racist cop just destroyed his whole life. FBI agents were investigating them the whole time." 3 FBI vehicles arrive within 10 minutes, their sirens cutting through the suburban afternoon like electronic screams. Special Agent Rebecca Carter steps out of the lead car, her expression deadly serious. "Agent Hayes, what's your status?" she calls across the yellow tape that's already being strung around the crime scene. "Fully operational, Supervisor. Multiple federal violations captured on camera by civilian witnesses. Derek attempts one final desperate plea as FBI agents begin photographing the evidence. Agent Hayes, I have 2 kids and a mortgage. This job is my whole life. Please don't destroy my family over a mistake." Jonathan's response carries the weight of every civil rights victim he's represented. "You should have considered your family before you decided to plant evidence and violate citizens' constitutional rights." Agent Carter approaches Derek with federal handcuffs. "Officer Mitchell, you're being detained pending investigation for violations under Section 242 of Title 18. The irony is not lost on anyone present. Derek, who had paraded Jonathan in handcuffs 30 minutes earlier, now faces the same humiliation from federal agents. "This can't be happening," Derek whispers as the cuffs click shut around his wrists. "This is all wrong." "I'm a police officer." "So is Agent Hayes," Carter responds coldly. "The difference is he respects the Constitution." Bradley attempts to distance himself from his partner's actions. "Agent Hayes, I want to cooperate fully with your investigation. Derek pressured me into going along with his decisions." Jonathan examines Bradley's body camera footage on Carter's tablet. "Your cooperation will be noted, Officer Knox, but participation in civil rights violations carries consequences regardless of who initiated them." Sergeant Williams confiscates both officers' badges, weapons, and patrol vehicles as potential evidence. "You're both suspended without pay effective immediately." The neighborhood buzzes with excitement as news vans arrive from 3 different television stations. Derek's arrest becomes the lead story on Chicago's evening news within 2 hours. "Federal agent racially profiled and illegally arrested by suburban police," reads the breaking news banner. Derek's wife receives frantic phone calls from neighbors who saw her husband's arrest on social media. His children will return from school to find their father's mugshot trending on Twitter. Mrs. Martinez ends her live stream after 47 minutes of footage that will become evidence in federal court. The video has been shared over 15,000 times across multiple platforms. "Thank you for documenting this," Jonathan tells her personally. "Your courage to record everything will help ensure justice." The scattered federal case files are carefully collected as evidence by the FBI's Evidence Response Team. Each document now serves dual purposes, investigating police misconduct and proving Derek's destruction of federal property. Agent Carter coordinates with the U.S. Attorney's Office about federal criminal charges. "We're looking at civil rights violations, obstruction of justice, destruction of federal property, and conspiracy charges." Derek sits in the federal detention vehicle, watching his career and reputation destroyed in real time. Local news interviews neighbors who witnessed his racist behavior and abuse of power. By evening, #Oakbrook police abuse trends nationally on social media. Derek's name becomes synonymous with police racism and federal justice. Jonathan calls his daughter Maya to explain why she'll see her father on the news. "Dad, are you okay?" she asks with concern. "I'm fine, sweetheart." Today, justice worked exactly as it should. The immediate consequences are swift and devastating for Derek. But this is only the beginning of his legal nightmare. Federal prosecutors are just getting started. 6 weeks later, the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago buzzes with media attention as cameras line the marble steps. Derek Mitchell's federal trial has become a national symbol of police accountability and civil rights enforcement. U.S. Attorney Patricia Valdez addresses the packed courtroom with unwavering authority. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence will show that Defendant Mitchell committed systematic violations of citizens' constitutional rights under color of law." Derek sits at the defense table in an ill-fitting suit, his police pension frozen and legal bills mounting. His attorney, Marcus Klein, attempts damage control with a desperate strategy. "My client made errors in judgment, but criminal intent was never present," Klein argues weakly. "Officer Mitchell believed he was protecting his community from suspicious activity." The prosecution's case unfolds like a masterpiece of federal law enforcement. Agent Carter presents FBI data analysis revealing Derek's pattern of targeting minority drivers over 3 years. 47 traffic stops of black motorists, she testifies, pointing to color-coded charts. 0 stops of white drivers in similar circumstances. The statistical impossibility of random enforcement is clear. Jonathan takes the witness stand wearing his FBI uniform, ribbons and commendations displayed across his chest. The jury's attention focuses completely on his testimony. Officer Mitchell's behavior that day was not an isolated incident, Jonathan states clearly. It represented systematic civil rights violations that my investigation had been documenting for months. Derek's defense attorney attempts cross-examination, but finds no weakness in Jonathan's professional testimony. Every answer demonstrates federal expertise and unshakable credibility. "Agent Hayes, isn't it possible my client simply made a mistake?" Klein asks desperately. "Planting evidence is not a mistake, counselor. It's a federal felony." The courtroom gasps as Jonathan details each violation with prosecutor precision. Body camera footage plays on large screens, showing Derek's racist commentary and evidence planting. Mrs. Martinez testifies about her live stream footage, which has been viewed over 2 million times worldwide. "I've never seen anything so blatantly racist from police officers," she tells the jury. The prosecution calls Derek's previous victims to testify. Marcus Thompson, the Reverend, describes his own traffic stop 3 months earlier. "Officer Mitchell used the exact same tactics," Thompson testifies. "False probable cause, planted evidence, racial slurs. The pattern was unmistakable." Dr. Sarah Williams, a black pediatrician, recounts her humiliating arrest during a medical emergency call. "He handcuffed me in front of my patients while I was trying to save a child's life." Each testimony builds an overwhelming case of systematic racism and abuse of power. Derek's pattern of behavior spans years, not months. The federal prosecution introduces evidence of Derek's social media posts filled with racist memes and anti-civil rights commentary. Screenshots show his membership in white supremacist Facebook groups. These posts reveal defendant Mitchell's true beliefs about racial minorities, prosecutor James Rodriguez explains to the jury. His actions were motivated by hate, not law enforcement. Derek's own body camera footage becomes his greatest enemy. Audio analysis reveals racist slurs and constitutional violations in case after case. Bradley Knox takes the witness stand as a cooperating witness, his plea agreement requiring complete honesty. Derek told me that these people needed to be kept in line through aggressive policing. Did Officer Mitchell use racial slurs regularly? The prosecutor asks. Daily, Bradley answers, avoiding Derek's furious glare. He said it was our job to maintain the neighborhood's standards. Expert witnesses testify about systemic racism in suburban police departments. Dr. Angela Davis, a criminal justice professor, explains the federal civil rights framework. When officers use their authority to target citizens based on race, they violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, she educates the jury. The defense's case crumbles under federal scrutiny. Derek's police supervisor testifies that no training justified his actions on Oak Avenue. Officer Mitchell's behavior violated every policy in our department manual, Chief Collins admits under oath. There was no legitimate law enforcement purpose for his actions. Character witnesses for Derek fail to overcome the overwhelming evidence. His pastor's testimony about community service rings hollow against video evidence of racism. Jonathan's closing testimony devastates Derek's remaining credibility. My grandfather taught me that a badge represents service, not supremacy. Officer Mitchell betrayed everything law enforcement should stand for. The jury deliberates for only 3 hours before returning with unanimous guilty verdicts on all federal charges. Derek's face crumbles as the word guilty echoes through the courtroom 8 times. Federal Judge Maria Santos addresses Derek before sentencing with judicial authority that fills the courtroom. Your actions represent the worst abuse of police power in my 30 years on the bench. Derek's wife sobs in the gallery as his children hide their faces from media cameras. His defense attorney's plea for mercy falls on unsympathetic judicial ears. The court sentences defendant Mitchell to 51 months in federal prison, Judge Santos announces. Additionally, a $50,000 fine and permanent disqualification from law enforcement employment. Derek's legs buckle as federal marshals approach with handcuffs. The same restraints he placed on Jonathan now secure his own wrists as he's led away to federal custody. The courtroom erupts in applause from civil rights advocates and community members. Jonathan's daughter Maya watches proudly from the gallery as justice finally prevails. Outside the courthouse, Jonathan addresses a crowd of reporters and supporters. This verdict sends a clear message that no one is above the law, regardless of their badge or uniform. The Department of Justice announces a comprehensive investigation into Oak Brook Police Department, leading to a federal consent decree requiring systematic reforms. Chief Collins resigns in disgrace within a week of Derek's conviction. Sergeant Williams faces disciplinary action for failing to supervise his officers properly. The Oak Brook City Council establishes a civilian oversight board with subpoena power and independent investigative authority. Federal monitors will oversee police reform for 5 years minimum. Derek's civil trial results in a $750,000 judgment against him personally. His house goes into foreclosure as legal bills and damages destroy his financial life. Bradley Knox pleads guilty to lesser federal charges and receives 18 months probation with mandatory bias training and community service requirements. Jonathan's federal investigation expands to encompass 12 suburban police departments with similar patterns of racial profiling and civil rights violations. The case became a landmark precedent for federal civil rights prosecutions. Law schools add Derek's conviction to their curriculum as a cautionary tale about police misconduct. Derek begins serving his sentence at a federal facility where his status as a disgraced police officer makes him a target. No sympathy exists for corrupt cops among federal inmates. Jonathan receives a commendation from the FBI director for his courage and professionalism under extreme circumstances. His case leads to enhanced civil rights training nationwide. Justice has been served completely and publicly. Derek's racism destroyed not only his own life, but created lasting change for communities nationwide. The federal system worked exactly as intended. 6 months after Derek's federal conviction, Jonathan stands beside his younger brother's gravestone in Graceland Cemetery. Fresh flowers rest against the polished granite marker that reads, "Marcus Hayes, beloved son and brother." "We did it, Marcus," Jonathan whispers, placing his hand on the cold stone. "We finally got one of them." The autumn wind carries golden leaves across the peaceful cemetery as Jonathan reflects on how his brother's death 15 years ago led him to the FBI's Civil Rights Division. Marcus had been pulled over for driving while black in a luxury car just like Jonathan. But Marcus didn't have a federal badge to save him. The officer's excessive force stopped his heart during the arrest. Jonathan's phone buzzes with a text from Maya at Northwestern University. "Dad, my criminology professor showed your case in class today." Everyone stood up and clapped. Pride swells in Jonathan's chest as he reads his daughter's message. Maya's college essay about justice and dignity earned her admission to law school early admission programs at Harvard and Yale. "Grandpa would be so proud," Jonathan says aloud, touching his grandfather's Rolex on his wrist. The watch survived Derek's racism and now represents 3 generations of resilience. The drive back to Oak Brook takes Jonathan through transformed neighborhoods. New community police partnership signs mark each block, symbols of the federal reforms implemented after Derek's conviction. Officer Sarah Rodriguez, Derek's replacement, waves respectfully as Jonathan passes her patrol car. The new diversity training and community oversight have created genuine relationships between police and residents. Mrs. Martinez approaches Jonathan at the local coffee shop, her face beaming with recognition. "Agent Hayes!" My live stream of that day has been viewed 5 million times now. People still message me saying it changed their perspective on police accountability. "Your courage to document everything made the difference," Jonathan responds warmly. "Without that footage, Derek might have gotten away with it." The Oak Brook Community Center displays a permanent exhibit about civil rights and police reform. Jonathan's case anchors the presentation, educating visitors about constitutional protections and federal oversight. Local high school students interview Jonathan for their civics projects. "How did you stay so calm when Officer Mitchell was abusing you?" asks 17-year-old Marcus Thompson, the Reverend's grandson. "My grandfather taught me that dignity is something no one can take from you," Jonathan answers. "But justice is something we must fight for together every single day." Derek serves his federal sentence at a minimum security facility in Ohio. Fellow inmates know about his racist policing, making his incarceration a daily reminder of consequences for civil rights violations. His wife divorced him 6 months into his sentence. His children changed their last names to escape the stigma of their father's crimes. Derek's choices destroyed every relationship he valued. Bradley Knox works security at a suburban shopping mall, forever marked by his participation in federal crimes. His law enforcement career ended with a guilty plea and federal conviction record. The Oak Brook Police Department operates under federal oversight with monthly audits and bias training requirements. Community trust has improved dramatically since Derek's removal. Jonathan's federal investigation expanded nationally, leading to reforms in 47 police departments across 12 states. The Hayes Protocol now guides federal civil rights enforcement nationwide. Young FBI agents study Jonathan's case during their academy training. His professional response under extreme stress becomes the gold standard for undercover civil rights investigations. Jonathan speaks at police academies about constitutional policing and racial bias. His message resonates with officers committed to legitimate law enforcement rather than racist power trips. "This badge doesn't make me special," Jonathan tells new recruits. "It makes me responsible for protecting everyone's rights, regardless of their race or social status." The federal civil rights case resulted in a $2.3 million settlement fund for Derek's previous victims. Families received compensation and counseling for their traumatic experiences. National civil rights organizations used Jonathan's case to advocate for police accountability legislation. Congressional hearings feature his testimony about suburban police racism. Derek's conviction inspired similar federal prosecutions across the country. Racist officers can no longer hide behind qualified immunity when their violations are captured on camera. Jonathan maintains his federal investigation work, knowing that Derek represents just one example of systemic problems requiring systematic solutions. Statistics reveal the ongoing challenge. Black drivers remain 3 times more likely to be searched during traffic stops. Federal enforcement must continue expanding to protect constitutional rights. Jonathan's story proves that individual courage can catalyze institutional change. But lasting reform requires sustained community engagement and federal oversight. The final scene shows Jonathan training new FBI agents on civil rights enforcement. Derek's mugshot displayed as a cautionary example of police corruption. Real change happens when good people refuse to stay silent, Jonathan tells his trainees. Your badge gives you the power to protect or to oppress. Choose wisely. The screen displays powerful statistics. Derek's case led to 47 police department reforms, 300 officer suspensions, and 12 federal convictions for civil rights violations. Call to action. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to see that justice can prevail over racism. Hit subscribe for more stories of courage overcoming corruption. Comment below. What would you do if you witnessed police misconduct in your community? Would you have the courage to intervene or record evidence? Follow us for updates on civil rights cases that need your attention and support. Final provocative question. How many Derek Mitchells are patrolling your neighborhood right now? And what will it take for every community to demand accountability from those sworn to protect? Are you ready to be the person with the camera when justice needs witnesses? Real change starts with ordinary people who refuse to stay silent when they see injustice. The choice is yours.
The story you heard today wasn't cleaned up. It was told exactly as it happened. At Black Voices Uncut, we believe that's the only way truth can live. If you felt something, hit like, comment, and your reaction, and subscribe. Every week, we bring you voices that refuse to be silenced.